Greetings and welcome to a very special edition of the Big O Show with Orestes Destrade. I am your host, JP Peterson, along with our very special guest today, Mathew Bowyer.
No doubt about it. Hello,
Matthew.
Matty B.
How you doing,
guys?
He's always tranquil and tropical. How you doing, Matty B?
Hey, man, doing great. Thank you guys for having me. A pleasure to meet you in person as well a few weeks ago.
Yeah, thanks
Or
for
last
coming by
week.
the studio, man. We appreciate that. And now we finally got you on here to talk about it. And for those of you who don't know, Mathew is the author of the book Recalibrate. It's the story of that jersey you have behind you, Shohei Ohtani. And you were there it is. The eyes get the book right there.
That's
You were
right.
the bookmaker for his interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, for
Yes,
4
sir.
years. And over 19,000 bets and $300+ million. It
Big
is
numbers.
an amazing story. And there's so much to cover here. I'm going to hand it over to my partner here, the Big O.
You know, and the book also, obviously, you know, when you look at just the title alone, Recalibrate, has to do with kind of coming back, if you will. You know, Maddie, I know I want to give you a chance to kind of, it's definitely about this, you know, arguably the greatest player of all time is Shohei Ohtani, and what his interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, you know, did and collaborated, if you will, with you. But this is also a story about your life and how you got to that point to be able to take massive bets, to be able to bet yourself and become something that you know, unfortunately for you, ended up becoming, you know, overwhelming and something that you knew had to change. So tell us a little bit about Matt Bowyer and how it led to culminate into basically dealing with the likes of Ippei Mizuhara.
Well, let's start off by saying Shohei Ohtani is probably not the best player in the history. I think Orestes Destrade might be the best player.
Hey, the only thing we have in common is that we both played in the major leagues and in Japan.
There
It
you
stops
go.
there.
No, definitely the greatest player I've ever watched in any sport, really. Amazing athlete. But my relationship with Ippei Mizuhara was, you know, short-lived, of course, about 2 years. But he definitely, when I met with him and our first meeting, let's call it, which was at a poker game in San Diego, California, started off with a really small taste, you know, just a really little tiny bite of what the pie ended up being. And it was a $1,000 per game, $8,000 credit line. And truth be told, I never envisioned being in a position where I'm in 17 days away from walking in a federal prison. And that meeting that day really made this a headline big story, which is why I'm, you know, on your show today and many others. And truth be told, I had a lot of big celebrities and athletes that were betting through me, but just there's no one bigger than Shohei Ohtani. So let's be real. That's what made this story so big.
So as a bookmaker, you were you had 700 big tech athletes, celebrities, all betting. Which I want to get into a little bit in terms of, as you can shed some light on what this world really looks like. I think it's staggering, honestly, to the amount of money that was bet. But as we stay with Ippei, and the question that I'm sure you get a million times is how much of this was Shohei's money? Did Shohei ever know? What can you tell us?
There's still, to me, there's a lot of questions there. As far as if Shohei ever knew. All the money, all the wire transfers were from Shohei Ohtani's bank account, all $17 million that Ippei extracted from him. $16.2 million went to me and my, I'm going to call it entourage, because I had, you know, quite a bit of people involved in my operation that were working under me for several reasons. But 16.2 million was all received from Shohei Ohtani or from his bank account. As far as him knowledge of what was happening, to me, to this moment, that still remains very questionable. I still believe to this minute that Shohei Ohtani wasn't the actual gambler, but I do believe that he had knowledge of it. I know he had like a 12-minute press conference. He doesn't seem like a liar, so I don't want to be here and act like I'm calling him a liar. I just think that the knowledge of him helping his friend and maybe loaning some money and allowing him to use some of the funds to cover a gambling debt, or any debt for that matter. I don't know what that conversation looked like, but I think there was a conversation that transpired. I imagine it was probably something to this effect where I'm so focused on baseball. You're my best friend, and I'm going to keep my head down and keep playing and do my thing. And if you need to borrow 50,000 or whatever the number is, no problem. And I think that escalated over time to be these crazy numbers that he probably wasn't aware of. But that's just my assumption. I have no proof of anything. I'm the third closest person to this case, this situation, because I was the bookmaker. But the reality is the only two people that know the exact truth of every step of the way is Shohei Ohtani and Ippei Mizuhara.
No doubt about that. And a little, history about Shohei and Ippei. They go back, most teams, in fact, pretty much across the board, hire the interpreter as the player comes into town. And they kind of meet and they hopefully sync up together and everything is great. And the players focus, especially the Japanese players. I will say Japanese players, and Shohei's to another level. Okay. I played against Ichiro in my day, been around Shohei quite a few times. He is a robot of a baseball player. He's a robot of a human being. I mean, this guy does everything systematically. Like, you listen to my words and you don't even understand how dramatic I really mean by that. So that being said, then you go to the next level, that the fact that they were friends in the Nippon Ham Fighters in Hokkaido, in Sapporo, when he played for the Nippon Ham Fighters, and Ippei was part of the organization as an interpreter for the American players. They became very close friends. When when Shohei comes and over to the Angels, he says, I want, my friend, that's the interpreter that I want. They live together, they're buddies. And I agree with you. I think there's a semblance of like, I don't even want to know what's going on. I need to focus on baseball, obviously if there was a chance that he knew some things, I think he just kind of probably blocked it. And he's like, it's all good. I make so much money. I just need to concentrate on baseball. And Ippei, make sure that my baseball is fine as far as how you're treating our job together, which is you're my interpreter. That being said, at what point, the early days, Matt, when you realize that Ippei Mizuhara is paying you back and you see Shohei Ohtani's account coming in, you're a businessman. You must have said, okay, now I'm going to raise, if he keeps on paying and it's coming from Shohei, I don't care where it's coming from as long as he's paying me. How did tell us the elevation of from 500,000 to $1 million, because you give credit lines, right, to players.
Absolutely. So as I said earlier, it started off as really small, 1,000, 8,000. Progressively, he blew that out really quickly. And then we moved him to 40,000 in credit. And then, of course, he ran through that real quickly and then went to 300,000. And that's when I drew a line. I said, listen, you need to pay. I need to see proof of payment before I raise it any further, which he promptly wired $300,000. At that time, I had no idea who the wire came from. Again, I was debanked, and it went to different parties, so no one even noticed. They just told me, "Hey, you got your 300 grand." I said, "Okay, great." So then I moved him to 500,000 per his request, and then he blew out the 500,000. Then he sent another wire. So then he said, "Give me $1 million." I moved him up to $1 million, and then he ended up losing again, and he sent 500,000. At that time, it was the third wire transfer. I got a phone call from a close friend of mine. He says to me, "Hey, listen, are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Because I need to tell you something." I said, "What's that?" He said, "The wire came in, so I got your 500,000." So that's great. He said, "But there's one problem. The name of the wire transfer is Shohei Ohtani." And I said, "Holy shit." That's when I knew there was going to be, this is good and bad for me, right? The good is the obvious. You have a guy who's basically going to be a billionaire that is sending me wires that I know can lose a huge amount of money. It's not going to affect their lifestyle or the livelihood whatsoever. And the bad is the obvious. It's going to put eyes on me possibly down the road. I have the biggest baseball player / athlete in the world. And the ego side of me was like, this is fantastic. The business side of me was like, okay, this is good, but it could be really bad. So I had a lot of mixed emotions. But of course, as a gambler who loves to go to Vegas.
That's where I was going to go. Because people don't need to know that you were as much a gambler as anybody in the game back then.
No question. And it was allowing me to feed what I consider to be a dopamine rush times 10. And I fed right into that. And of course, I was in Vegas and all throughout the country, Monte Carlo, London, Singapore, you name it, everywhere. And flying around the country in jets and enjoying the lifestyle because I was receiving wires almost every 2 weeks for $500,000.
And that was fueling your gambling.
It was. And, in truth, I actually had the worst run of my life, sadly, at the peak of my career. And I say that because I've been gambling since I was 21 on a very high level. In particular, the last 15 years, I've been gambling where I would consider myself a whale, where I was getting private jets and negotiating deals with casinos and bringing $2 million consistently almost every 2-3 weeks.
Betting on Super Bowls?
That too.
So how much was he losing at a time? Like some of these bets would come in and like, what was he betting on? And how he must have been a really bad gambler.
He really was. He was betting soccer. The worst I've seen.
That's Japanese word. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, that's a very good phrase for him because he was betting on average. It equated to be 26 bets a day, but that's really inaccurate because there was moments where he was cut off because I had to cap him at. It would end up being $24 million. And people ask me, why did you cap it there? And why did we even get to that? And I'll explain that. But the reality is that he was cut off at times for like 2 weeks at a time because he couldn't send me any money. So if you're not playing at all for 2 weeks and you're averaging 26 bets a day, imagine what you're really betting in a day. It's probably 60, 70 bets, right?
Right.
So he was betting very often all throughout the night. He must not have slept because a lot of the soccer games he was betting were when I was sleeping. I remember one night I woke up, or one morning, and that night he bet and he won 4.4 million in soccer on one night, and I couldn't believe it. And I realized that $100,000 a game and all the parlays and everything, he was going bonkers. And so I had to make sure, because personally I don't have nearly, well, especially now, I had nowhere clear enough to money to cover what he was betting. Had he won 4.4 million 10 days in a row, you're talking about $40 million.
Right.
So I had to manage it in that sense. But luckily for me, he was already down so much at the time.
Right.
I kind of had, some money in the kitty, so to speak, to play with. And that allowed me to be aggressive and, raise his limits to 100,000 a game. And because, his appetite was huge. I mean, so was mine. But I was one of the only bookmakers in the country that would ever take $100,000 on soccer games. I mean, it's just very rare you see that.
That's crazy.
And by the way, he was betting NBA, NFL as well a little bit, but mostly soccer. It was like these crazy countries I've never heard of, and a lot of like Tunisia, or maybe a country you've heard of but you've never even thought about visiting. I mean,
how could you spec those games? You know what I mean? How does he he's just like, you can't even get any insider information. You're just kind of guesstimating.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's been so many games where I would wake up and, or even during the day, and I'd look to see what he had because, of course, I would monitor the action, and I couldn't find on Flash Score or Live Score the bets because they're in countries I've never heard of, and they weren't even on the websites that you would look up for all scores. And this, that everyone gambles nowadays, so like every event that's major has access to getting scores. I couldn't find these games. It was wild what he was betting.
I do want to ask, because in that same vein, when was it that you were at an Angels game? Shohei's pitching. Tell us that story, and bets are coming in from Ippei.
Yeah, I think that was we were trying to pinpoint that time. It was either March, spring training, because I would hang out with some of the ball players. I'd go to spring training in Arizona, play golf, go to the casino with them. And I think in March of 22 was when I was really curious I've been curious to this day how it all went down. And the questions that you guys are asking, of course, I still want to know, how much does Shohei know about anything?
Correct.
But I was really curious if Shohei was gambling, because in truth, I thought it was him. I mean, how can an interpreter bet this kind of money?
Right.
And so I wanted to know. So there were one particular game when he was pitching, and then I noticed, I was on my website on purpose, and I saw bets going in on specific soccer games. And obviously you can't throw a baseball and put bets in on a phone at the same time. So at that point I knew.
It's got that feature.
Listen, he is a two-way phenom, but I don't know if he's
working PitchCom betting on Tunisian soccer. I don't think that was happening.
he's talented, but I don't think anyone can do that and throw a ball 102 miles an hour. But he definitely, the bets were coming in. And so then I realized, okay, let's be real here. I think I know what's going on. Either they're partners on the account, splitting the action, and just, which I've done with a lot of people. When you're a degenerate gambler,
Right.
you know, hey, let's go halves on some games today, whatever. And truth be told, I still thought that might be the possibility. But come to find out, there's one thing I know, because I was friendly with some Angel ball players, and they all said he never gambled on anything. And you know this. You're a ball player. Oh,
Right. Not
sometimes
even,
people bet.
even AC-Doocy, not even like
Yeah, you know, no cars, no nothing.
Right.
I mean, they're betting on, you guys, you know, as ball players would bet on
we
stupid
bet
things
on
like
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And if
What
you don't
color
gamble,
pants is Julio Tavares going to show up with today?
Yeah,
Because
right.
yesterday they were blue. I'm saying
Yeah.
black. You know, yeah, we would bet $20, $50.
How about spring training? Like you're walking out, you know, batting practice. Who's going to hit more home runs off the
Right.
Yeah.
100%
like that?
goes on all the
And
time.
Shohei never showed any signs of that at all.
Nobody has ever said
He's a
bet on
robot,
anything.
dude. He's not
I
even
mean,
human.
Anything. Like not
Wow.
$5, nothing. So like you don't just develop a gambling crazy habit overnight. Either you gamble or you don't. And yes, your gambling could get out of control later in life or something, of course. But in general, you know, you gamble from you're a young kid all the way until you're an adult, or you
Right.
don't gamble at all. So I just don't think he gambled. But I do believe that he was innocent, and clearly I'm very happy that he's on the field and playing. And you know, I was worried about how this was all going to play out. Do I think that maybe the Dodgers and MLB came in and shut Ippei down from even saying Shohei knew about some of the funds? Yes, that's my belief. And I understand that perspective, because at the end of the day, they just want to brush this thing as fast as they could and get him on the field. And frankly, so did I. I mean, he's great for baseball, great for the sport, great for integrity of the sport, great for everything. I didn't want this to be a Pete Rose situation all over again, which
Who
ironically
you dealt with, by the way.
Yeah, he was my client for a couple of years after he got out of baseball.
Right.
But I didn't want that to happen, because I did believe that he was innocent, and I still to this day do. And you know, they proved that. So obviously, the FBI knows how to run down IPs and your phone and logins and everything, and they proved that he definitely was never making any bets. And the other thing I want to say is, you know, as it's already been shown, he never bet on baseball anyway. So I still think it's ridiculous that a baseball player can't bet on other sports anyway. I mean, they're allowed to. So the only problem that's illegal is betting with an illegal bookmaker. But let's be real, if you're in California, you can't. You need an illegal bookmaker to gamble, period. So I just don't feel like that should be some big crime anyway.
Mathew Bowyer joining us here. He's the author of Recalibrate, the book. So go get that book. And he's been doing a lot of national media. Thank you so much for doing the O show here with us. I think the first time I ever heard the story, the first thing I said was, wait, these guys live together. They're best friends. They interpret if this guy's betting, you know, this 300 million plus in 2 years, 19,000 bets. There's no way they spend so much time together. There's no way Ohtani does not know that this is going on. Plus, it's coming out of his bank account. He's got to know, but there's a difference between knowing and actually betting, right?
Correct. And I agree with you, JP. Like at the end of the day, you know, he is a robot. O's covered it. I think the whole world's seen that. Like, he's remarkable. Yeah. The fact that the guy basically overcame adversity of this whole situation, and then went out and had the best season of his career, 50 home runs and MVP, win the World Series, and just shattered everything, is a testament to what kind of amazing human he is, let alone baseball player. But that being said, I do believe that he, again, had some knowledge. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I want to lend my friend some money, then what's wrong with that?
Yeah. And the point is, it's hard to produce like that when your conscience is guilty. When your conscience is clear, you can go out. I don't care what kind of robot you are.
But you know what? I'm going to step in here, and I know he's probably has to have a story or two. I've always compared Shohei Ohtani as one of the greatest athletes of all time in all sports. The greatest athlete that I think ever in all sports, another robot, by the way, is Michael Jordan, who could put everything aside and concentrate on the task at hand. And I don't just mean the task at hand of winning the championship, winning that particular game, how he trained, how he slept, how everything that needed to be in order for him to be the greatest. And he dealt with the death of his father, which was controversial. Obviously, having
maybe gambling related.
Playing, I got to play in a game. I got, Michael signed shoes for me. I got to play against Michael Jordan in a game in spring training because obviously he never played in the major leagues.
Right.
But when he was with the White Sox, he came up swinging bunt, beat it out. He was fast as hell. And I'm at first base with the Marlins in a spring training game. And I'm looking at it, I go, MJ, man, you signed a pair of shoes for me? He goes, you got it, man, after the game. After the game, we were running in the track, got to know him. But the bottom line is that guy was also a robot on his own with true gambling.
Well, a huge gambler.
Yeah, right. Gambling is. Where do you put that? And the reason that I compare them as the greatest athletes, by the way, because MJ was not only an offensive player, but he was one of the greatest defensive players. Shohei Ohtani is one of the greatest offensive players, and he's also a defensive player because really the defense starts with the guy that has the ball in hand, the pitcher. So he stops the other offense. So Shohei Ohtani is actually a defensive player, and that's why I put them both in the greatest of all time. A little bit on MJ and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so if I had to label the three athletes in my 50 years of existence that I've seen, because I can't talk about Babe Ruth, I was not alive, would be clearly number one is Shohei Ohtani, and then Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. Those are the three people that I've seen dominate their competition like no other and have the mindset that I've never seen.
Right.
To your point on Michael Jordan, we all know he gambled. He owns it, and he gambles to this day. Tiger Woods gambles as well. Actually, I've seen him in Vegas as well.
Big
playing.
time.
Yeah.
Really?
Pretty big? Yeah. He's a big player. And MJ too. And Charles Barkley I've hung out with and gambled with as well. But the point, back to what I'm saying, is the reason I think Shohei Ohtani is even above a Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods is not only, you're right, did he play defense and offense, but he's pretty much the best at both. He's not just a great defensive player. Like MJ was a great defensive player. I don't think he was the best defensive player, but definitely in the top 10 or whatnot. But this guy is really one of the best pitchers on the mound, period. Top three in the league. Yeah. And definitely one of the top three hitters every year in the league, if not the best. And then not only that, he can run. I mean, he steals bases. He can play anywhere in the field. I mean, you don't really need him to because he's a pitcher and a DH. He's a five-tool weapon out there on the baseball field like no other. I mean, he's like the fifth fastest guy in the Major League Baseball, and yet he's a towering 6'4", 6'5". He's just a specimen in all fields.
The sixth weapon is blocking all of this information out because this was massive. Focus. The way that this was coming out and coming on you, because obviously the FBI had to be, Matty Bowyer, we need to talk to you, buddy. Tell
us that story.
How all that came about.
Oh, they definitely weren't. They weren't doing that.
It wasn't.
They were doing this.
Matty, are you home?
I was putting my son in my wife's car, and I heard FBI freeze, and I look over to my left, and there was 8 guys with ARs pointing them at me, and the full tactical gear, and of course
with your kids right there.
With my son, I was putting him in the car seat. Yeah. Because they come prepared. They don't know what they're dealing with, and in their defense, their job is to secure the premise first. I get it. It's a little overkill, in my opinion. They clearly did their homework. They could see that I was a father, and they knew that I clearly wasn't involved in drugs. I mean, they've already raided me back in 2014. I've never done a drug in my life, never been involved in that. So my business was solely a gambling operation. And but they did see that I had weapons before. I did have, back in 2013, I had like 20 guns. I sold them all. The reason I even had the weapons is because I got them a gift card from the casinos at Bass Pro Shops for $50,000, and I went and just bought weapons. So
probably had some cash at the house, right?
Oh yeah, they grabbed that too. They caught me on a Thursday, and thank God for that, because on Monday I paid out like $1.2 million to my customers, and then I only had about $270,000 left in my house. So they scooped that along with the gold coins, gold bars, and casino chips, and then of course about $300,000 worth of handbags that my wife had and all her jewelry.
They took all of it.
Yeah, they took it all. Yeah, definitely. But luckily for me, my attorneys negotiated back the purses and handbags and our jewelry because I paid restitution, but the cash, the casino chips, the gold bars, all that's gone. I'll never receive that back.
I do want.
How much was that in total?
If you valued everything, it'd be about $1 million. But again, they gave back the handbags and watches and jewelry. That was probably $500,000 worth of items right there.
Walk us back, Matt, because you mentioned the 2013, you know, before, no pun intended, you kind of took your operations and went, you know, you went on steroids.
Global,
if
big
you
time.
went. Well, I was going to use a baseball term,
Bigly.
which was you went on steroids. So in 2013, so everybody who probably doesn't know the story, they were eyeing you, they got you, right? What happened there? Because you would think that, okay, you're going to go to jail or anything, but explain what happened there.
Yeah, so actually it was March 25th of 2014. I actually just landed from March Madness on a plane in Orange County, California. And basically I got a phone call from my neighbor as I was getting my bag saying, I don't know what the hell's going on at your house, but it looks like World War V. There's SWAT and everything everywhere. So I pulled into my home here in Orange County, and I was basically bombarded instantly. And then, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Sorry. Anyway, 1 second. You have to edit that.
Great. That's fine.
You're good, man. You've been talking.
Well, I did a podcast before.
Product placement. Put the Celsius up there. There you go.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got paid for that. So I'll start over. So March of 25th of 2014, when the feds came to me, I got off a plane. I just went to March Madness, lost about $800,000. I had a kickback, a discount that they gave me that was in my Cadillac Escalade. It was about 80 grand. And I actually was with my ex. I pulled over to the side. I was a block away from my house. I already been told by my neighbor that the SWAT team and everybody was at my home. So I knew I was coming into a raid. So I left my watches and all my jewelry and the 80 grand in the car, and I dropped it off about a half a mile from my home and ran to the house because I just figured I'd rather have them not put my ex and my at the time my daughter was 4 through that, or no, she was 2, through that experience. And then I didn't want to also have any items, taken from me, which is actually really the wrong move. If you're ever going to be raided by the feds, you should be wearing the items, not having them out. But I didn't know that. So I came into the community, a gated community, and I ran into there, and then I immediately was bombarded. It was like, I felt like I was Al Capone. There was 14 of them. Took me in my house. I opened all the safes, gave them all the money. And after about 6 hours of raiding the home, they made an agreement with me. It's called a abandonment form, which states that if I release the funds, I don't hire an attorney, don't go after it, then I won't be arrested or charged. So I looked at it. Yeah, to me, it was a get out of jail free card.
No doubt.
The message at that time in my life was wrong, though. I mean, the message should have been, all right, you've been very lucky. You dodged a bullet, go do something legal again, just make the right choice. And I chose that as an opportunity to just, like you said, put steroids to my business. And
they didn't take your Rolodex.
No, I mean, they took my
phone. They didn't take your list.
They took my phone, but the reality is I just went right back to Verizon and plugged my phone right back into the new phone. And obviously it keeps all the contacts. So I had everything up and running within hours.
Wow. And then you broadened the scope into
I just scaled it bigger and bigger. And I'll be honest, I looked at it as like, okay, if this is the worst case scenario,
that's what
then
the gambler.
Yeah, and that's the wrong message, but that's the message. At 39 years old, being a father of 4 at the time, it was, I was lazy. I didn't want to go become a doctor at 39 and put 8 years in schooling or.
That's hard work.
Or back into commodities, which you were at a younger age.
Yeah, and I could have easily done that. And I chose, what I deemed to be, for me, a passion project, which was sports and gambling. It was the deadliest combination for a guy who is a degenerate gambler, who loves sports, who loves action, and you're going to pay me to do something I love, then it's really not a job.
All right, let's get into some stories here. Have a little bit of fun here. You personally, I've read some stories or heard about you sitting at the baccarat table, $300,000 bets per hand. Like, take me through some of that. Like, what did you need to get a buzz, to get some adrenaline going? Like, how much money? What kind of action we talking about here?
To be honest, the euphoric high of betting $300,000 on a hand is like, it's undescribable. I'll try to give you a reference. Imagine the best sex of your life times 10, and then that would probably be a good equation. I've never done drugs, but whatever your fantasies are, it's, to me, that was it. Of course, people who don't like to gamble aren't going to understand that, but maybe it's if you've ever done a drug in your life, which I haven't, but if you have extreme ecstasy or maybe heroin or whatever that high is felt, I imagine it's similar. That being said, when you're doing it every 35, 40 seconds on a hand of baccarat, I mean, I've had runs where I've made 10 hands in a row, it's $3 million. And I've had runs, of course, I've lost 3 million. But the fact that you can go into a casino, which I have many times with, I'm not joking, with like $600 in my pocket with a $2 million credit line, and then walked out 2 days later with $2.5 million is like euphoric. And then the fact that you're on a private plane eating caviar, you're at the best nightclub in the world, you're front row seats to a fight, UFC, or flown to, and in my case, we were on a private jet 2 days before I got raided. I just got off an airplane. They had 2 G550s that sent us out to Dallas Cowboy Stadium from Vegas. Me and all my entourage went out there and watched the game. I bet $800,000 on the game on the Cowboys against the Raiders. They killed them. I won. I came back. I was down like $1 million at the casinos. I won it all back that night, which I never did there. I always lost at Resorts World. And anyway, so it was like a $2.5 million swing in about 24 hours where I was down $1 million too. So like those type of moments are things that you just never understand unless you walk through them. And then you're always chasing that high, you know? Yeah. In 2023, JP, I bet $4.6 million on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. And I thought I was going to lose. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was hobbling into halftime. They looked terrible. Yeah. And I ended up winning the bet. But the point is, I would have bet $7 million probably the next year if I wasn't raided by the FBI.
You would have lost.
Walk us through. Exactly. Walk us through for a second.
Thanks, FBI.
Walk us through for a second how you got to the point where you were going to bet over $4 million, $4.5 million.
Well, what's it like watching? Like the game outcome was, I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't have anything. I had maybe a little bit of action on the game, a couple $100.
But why wasn't it $1 million or $1.2 million? You know, where did you make the math to go, I need to bet 4.6?
Well, I'll tell you why. It was every dollar I could possibly get on the game.
No way, dude.
Why were you that sure?
You just believed in that game.
Anyone who tells you they're sure is absolutely full of shit. I wasn't sure. I just believed. Mistake, right? I'll be honest with you. Every time I walked into a casino, despite the fact that I clearly lost over time, don't get me wrong, but I've lived my life. I've been ultra confident, almost too much confidence. Right? My ego's big,
like
to the point where I believe I'm going to win in every event or everything I do. Every time, I don't care what's going on.
You manifest.
I still believe in myself. Yeah, I do. I mean, I believe you're going to do better in life if you believe in yourself 1,000,000%. Right? I mean, O wasn't a great baseball player because he thought he was going to strike out. He went up there willing to hit a home run. And that was my mentality. I went into a casino or a bet as if it's a war. It's me against them. And to answer your question, the reason I bet 4.6 million is the year before I bet $2 million on Tampa Bay. That was the biggest bet I ever made. And I just kept chasing a bigger high. So if I felt like if I bet 2 million, you know, even though it's a lot of money, it wouldn't have quite gave me the dopamine rush that I was chasing. It wasn't even about the money. I mean, a $50 bettor, if he bets 5,000, he's going to have the same feeling I had at 4.6 million.
Right. It's massive bet. Yeah,
it's all relative. I get, since it's the Tampa Bay show, we love the Bucks. We cover the Bucks. Why did you think the Bucks were going to win? Did you have any insider information, or you just felt like this was the Bucks' time?
Brady,
or you love Brady?
Brady and co.
To be honest, I hated Brady. And the reason I say that is not because as a person, he's an amazing human being, but like I've lost more money on Tom Brady than any player in history. Truly. But
so he gets you some back.
Bro, I think we can run off 20 athletes and he could tell you like them, hate them, depending on the bets win.
That is correct. And it's all monetary based. It has nothing to do with the person. Josh Allen's my favorite quarterback. I think he's an amazing human being. But that's because I've met him and spent time with him. But truly, most of the other emotions I have towards athletes are because of money. And
so there was no insider information on Tampa Bay that you had?
No, listen, when it comes to a Super Bowl, JP, I don't care what anyone tells you. There's no such thing as insider because the spread and the amount of bets coming in, if there's ever a value of getting inside information. It's going to be on usually a college, sporting event where the line is wrong, and you can definitely have some value and find an edge. On the NFL, it's very difficult, especially a Super Bowl. But I felt that Tampa Bay's defense that year was so good and the best that I don't care who was playing. I mean, even though I think Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks,
Yeah.
which by the way, to comment further on that, if you go back and watch that football game, I think he showed in that football game why he is definitely one of the best quarterbacks to play, because not only did they dominate and beat the living crap out of him, but he was running for his life on every play.
Yeah, he was.
And he still was making things happen. I mean, Kelsey dropped like 2 perfect passes or a couple. I mean, they got blown out. They weren't going to win anyway, but they could have made that at least a reasonable game. I mean, he showed in that loss actually more of a winning quarterback than I've ever seen, truly. But to your question, I just really felt their defense was amazing, and I was right on that particular game. I probably went and blew it all. In fact, I did. I went to Resorts World and lost $1 million the next day.
Jeez Louise.
So,
Matty B, man.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't hold on to it long. It's like a hot potato,
Exactly.
I go ahead.
It's just great because we all, are chasing this insider information. To hear one of the biggest gamblers in the history of the world say there's no inside information on the NFL. It's all, you guys, you could try to chase and listen to this guy, listen to that guy. It's just like, and to kind of go a little bit further into the NFL, we had a situation this week in Tampa Bay.
Great
where
point.
It's the under was 43, 43 and a half on this game. And the Bucks are actually dominating. The Jets can't move the ball. They start to move the ball at the end. There's a play in the end zone where Lazard clearly drops the ball. It's on the ground. It came through, and they call it a touchdown. And it takes the game from under to over. And I asked one of our listeners, I haven't checked this out yet, but I said, how much money was on the under? And he said, I went and checked Action Network, and it was 81% of the money was on the under. And it flipped to the over. And there's no accountability. I even asked Todd Bowles after the game. I said, did they give you any explanation for why they called that a touchdown? He said, nope. They just said New York said it was a touchdown, and he caught the ball. There's no accountability. Some nameless, anonymous person says it's a catch. I don't know how much money you think flipped hands in that one call, and there's no accountability. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but the fact of the matter is the NFL sure giving us a lot to work with to claim conspiracy when there's no accountability. The process is completely behind closed doors. Even the ACC now is like opening the microphones when they go to the replay. You can hear the referees talking and the video people talking. There's no transparency in the NFL. And now all this money now with the legal sports gambling, are we going to have to move to a little bit more transparency on these and some consistency in the calls? Because this is ridiculous.
Well, now that gambling is, you bring up a really interesting point. Now that gambling is so less taboo and worldwide and et cetera, it's going to create a lot more of these conversations, because now you have, the handle on a freaking NFL football game of actual gambling numbers are 100 times what it used to be. And so now you have people that are watching these games that wouldn't be watching it. Women now are betting sports more than ever. And I say that because when I was rated, I had 4 women agents that were working under me, and I had more women clients than I've ever had in my life at that time. And that's because it's becoming legal and less taboo, and more people are, involved, and they don't view it as a backdoor baseball bat mafia thing if you don't pay and all that kind of stuff. So my point to you is there's so many games and so many things that happen where the human, element is still involved, that it's always going to look like it's rigged or fixed, because that's our first instinct to think. It's like, I just got screwed on this bet, and this is what happened.
I had the
I
under.
don't believe that.
JP didn't know I had the under. Yeah,
he was one of the 81%.
But I mean, we like to, let's be honest, when we lose, we're all competitive, and we like to blame somebody else rather than just look in the mirror and say, I just picked a loser.
Right.
Regardless of how it happened, because it's just better and it feels better.
Yeah, of course.
My opinion is the NFL is the least likely to ever have any form of fixing or rigged or this or that. I'm not saying it hasn't happened in its day. I'm sure there's been a ref that's done something he shouldn't have, maybe a player, but it's so much harder to change an outcome of a game in the NFL because it's a team sport and there's so many people involved. Of course, a quarterback can easily change the outcome of a game, but let's be real. These guys make so much money. They're going to get caught. I think they know it. They clearly, when it comes below that, though, college and stuff like that, That's where the problems are coming, and that's where you're seeing it. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you had 13 players or 6 players from 13 teams, or what, I forget what ESPN reported, that all got caught for fixing games and rigging stuff. And the college athletes is a different conversation because they don't make as much money,
Right.
unless they're NIL guys. They're never going to be on a pro football team or pro basketball team. So, you can't blame them. I mean, I'm not saying it's the right move, but
No, I agree.
You can understand if I
Fertile
can make,
ground.
yeah, what if I can make $1 million? I'm a 19-year-old kid who has no future in professional wise, and I could just throw off on one game and win by 4 instead of 14. I mean, hey, it's understandable. It's going to pull them to doing things they shouldn't be.
Well, that ties me in to this whole thing, what we just brought up in this prop bet. Your thoughts on prop bets, and because now it's a slippery slope. Now you have all the major sports, kind of partnering with DraftKings and FanDuel and the casinos, Bally's. I used to work for Bally's, the production. But where is it going to go? And do you think, and JP had brought something up, to me recently about prop bets that then maybe should get rid of the under, because you can have a guy like Emmanuel Clase, which is alleged still, right? Clase and Luis Ortiz with the Indians are suspended with pay right now, pending more, speculation and more investigation by MLB on 2 dramatic breaking pitches that bounced 10 feet in front of home plate.
Right.
But the prop bets went up, dramatically at the time of those pitches, which was obviously the first pitch is going to be a strike or a ball. There's going to be a ball, and all of a sudden, $200,000 was bet on a ball.
It's too easily controlled by one player.
I think so.
And it's also
Rozier,
doesn't
the basketball player,
doesn't really kill the outcome of the game. It's just one pitch.
Yeah.
That to me, you're just begging. You're just begging for stuff to go wrong. And why can't they just say, we have enough things we can bet on? Let's get rid of those first pitch strikes that are so controllable by one person. And also maybe the unders when, under rebounds, under points, when guys can just, very easily manipulate that stuff.
I agree with a few of your points. The last one I think will never work, the under thing, and I'll tell you why. All the sports books are just going to inflate the numbers on the overs, so it's going to make it to where, it's not really a fair wager, in my opinion, because they can't lose by inflating the number. No one's betting the unders because they can't. But as far as the prop bets, I agree with you guys. That is a big problem because people don't think they're going to get caught, which they are, because they have these companies now that look and see when there's large amount of dollar bets on a specific prop, and they're going to look at the prop, and of course, if it looks obvious, they're going to do investigation and they're going to get caught. The federal government has all the resources in the world, and so does MLB, so does NFL, so does NBA. Right. And they have to keep the integrity, and they're going to fight every which way to do that because gambling is now going to make their revenue stream for everything so much bigger. So they have to hit these cases and nail them right in the butt. And what they're going to do is, let's be real, the mafia is no longer really around, and that's because of cameras and people, have so much access to everything now. And therefore, same thing for this. People talk too much. If you want to bet big on a prop, it's going to be traceable somehow. And I agree with you. This is what I would do. I would just make prop limits like $100, which way, people can't take advantage of it, but they can still bet it. And it doesn't matter who you are. The max bet is $100 or something small, and it's going to avoid these little temptations because that's all it is.
I do want to ask you, you brought up the mafia, because if you go back in some of the vices that have become legal, right, or whether it's government owned and or
can tax
company, and can tax it. You go back to alcohol and prohibition, right? The mafia was controlling that. You go back to the lottery, by the way. Everybody's loves, Mega Millions and stuff. That was controlled by the mafia. It was called the numbers racket, the bolitas in the Latin communities. Mm-hmm. And then the government said, why are we making hundreds of millions and trillions of dollars? They controlled that. You can even look at weed, as something that now they're going to be legalized so they can tax that. Gambling is definitely going that route. You were in an illegal gambling scenario. Your thoughts on all of that and how it's where the future is to this?
Well, listen, gambling is going to outperform alcohol, all of those things,
Really?
because people don't realize how many people actually gamble. It's way bigger than people realize, and especially sports, especially now. And imagine 5 years from now, it's only going to be double what it is. I mean, you're just allowing the floodgates to open, and everyone was gambling before anyway. But now that you're saying it's okay, you're going to bring out all the people that were a little bit scared, on the fence, or whatnot. And now, like I said, women are getting more involved. And here's the problem: the young generation, the 21 to 25-year-olds that are gambling and developing serious gambling addictions, they don't even realize it, is going to be really a problem. There's going to be an epidemic in 5 years where these guys are now 30, 32, whatever, trying to buy a home, having a baby, and now their gambling went from $50, $100 a game to 500 to 1,000. And now they can't pay their mortgage. Now they can't feed their kid. They're losing their wife because they got a gambling problem. And all of that's going to come out in about 5 years to be a serious gambling problem is going to be so out of control in 5 years.
And then that circles all the way back to Recalibrate in your book.
Does.
Because that is basically, you've lived it. You were not only passionate, but you were a degenerate gambler. You saw the fruits and also the downfalls. Because the only thing I can think about with those four things that I mentioned, alcohol, lottery, weed, even though lottery obviously is a form of gambling, but it's different, weed, and now gambling. The real vices, I bet you there's not that many alcoholics in the 1800s compared to once they legalized, drinking, what we have now, because it's so accepted social drinking.
Correct.
Now, if you're telling me that gambling is going to be a social event, we're going to have a lot of degenerate gamblers. And I know you're trying to preach a message of obviously of moderation and how to overcome things.
Balance. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like I always say this, gambling is perfectly fine. It's acceptable. It's a great thing to bring people together and make a game more enjoyable, make going to a casino with your friends and family and having a good night and, taking whatever you deem to be a responsible amount of money and knowing you could lose it and it doesn't affect your life. That's what it's for. But let's be real. You said it best. We, the American people, struggle with balance and moderation. And me included, find ways to get outside the lines. And then guess what? It affects your life. And then, you don't, in gambling, you can hide. That's the problem with gambling. Alcohol, drugs, someone's high or drunk, they're slurring their words, they can't drive. I mean, it's very obvious, right? But I could have $1 million on a basketball game right now, and we're talking, and you would never know it. And I might just look at my phone or not even check the score until it's over.
Holy cow!
Nobody knows.
Or 4.6.
Yeah, exactly. And guess what? There's a lot of people doing that where their wives have no clue what they're doing, and they're just funneling money, hiding it and changing their perspective on the world and life. It's very sad. That being said, that's why I believe that the people who can gamble and control it moderately, it's a fantastic way to go have a good time. But the ones who don't need help right away before it gets to where they end up in my shoes, where you're walking into a federal prison. Because I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me on my social media that have stolen massive amounts of money, just like Ippei did, to feed their gambling addiction, and they get caught when it's too late and they owe so much that they now are in a Ponzi scheme or some fraud of some sort. And they fed their gambling addiction. They're probably great people. People don't understand how entrapping this could be. It's their fault. They got to look in the mirror and own it. But my point is, they're now going to prison and ruin their life. And it's a problem that's going to be coming out a lot more.
That's Ippei Mizuhara, who's serving 5 years. By the way, what was the tally with Ippei? That at the end of all said and done,
he still owes me $24 million at this moment.
Holy cow!
Yeah, he lost $40 million.
So let me ask you,
hey Shohei, can I get some?
No. But I'm just curious. But over your left shoulder, that's an Ohtani signed shirt there.
Yeah, this is a jersey that Ippei got for me from Shohei Ohtani. It's made out to my son, to Kingston is my son's name. And I asked for that because my son at the time when I met Ippei was 2 years old, and I think he was 1.5 actually. And I wanted, him to have this memory. I had no idea I'd be sitting here today talking about I'm going to federal prison because of it. But I was hoping that as I knew Shohei was going to probably be one of the best baseball players ever, I thought it'd be cool to have a personally signed jersey because he doesn't sign a lot of jerseys.
No, he doesn't.
And especially being that this is a one-of-one, it's signed to my son, the bookmaker involved in the biggest sports scandal in the history.
So basically what you're telling me, that's a $24 million signed jersey by Shohei Ohtani.
That is correct. That is correct.
What percentage of professional athletes gamble?
I say
do
it's
any
50,
gamble on their sport?
50%. I think it's
50%?
50% or higher. I mean,
50%?
oh yeah. I mean,
Do any
think about-
gamble on their sport?
I mean, let me ask you a question. I'll answer that. I think less than 1% on that because I think it's
Less
too
than
dangerous
1%?
for them. Yeah, that's my guess. How many people when you were playing, all your teammates, if you had to guess, what do you think of them gamble? Period.
I personally am not a gambler, but I knew several. And I would say of like the nucleus of the people that I knew, there was 4 or 5 that were serious gamblers. I wouldn't say 50% of my 25-man roster that I knew of, but I knew of 4 or 5 that were daily,
all right, so you're talking about
bets.
5 out of 25 roughly, right?
Right.
Okay, but that was, no offense, I know you're not 20
No,
years
it
old.
was the 90s, 80s and 90s.
And now,
where it wasn't as accessible, you had to really have a bookie and find somebody. Or a lot of the guys, what they did is they had friends. So they would give their friends $500. Hey, go place a bet on this, but there wasn't the data that we have now to be able to go beep, beep, beep. And, he just bet
but
$5,000.
Basically you said roughly 20% is 5 of 25. It's 20% as of 20 years ago. Now, I think
you're probably right.
Is probably about 50% now. And of course, we're both speculating. We don't have any facts behind us. But the point is, like, you're correct. Most of my athletes that were betting through my website, they didn't deal with me directly. They went through somebody else. So I actually I had about 15 to 20 celebrities and athletes that are kind of names that everyone knows. If I named them off, which I won't, but if I did, you guys would all know who they are, what movie they've been in, or what team they play for. Yeah. But there's probably another 20 that I never even knew.
Yeah.
That were betting through my site through somebody else.
Any other celebrity that owes you 7 figures? 8 figures?
No, I mean, I have other people, but not celebrities. No.
Other people that still owe you some big money.
Yeah, there's one I name in my book because he stiffed me $12 million, and I didn't name people in my book, but I named him because I'm not very happy with what he did to
me. More power to you, buddy.
Yeah,
I'd name him twice.
Right?
Like New York.
Exactly.
Matthew, to wrap this up, what gambling advice would you give to us? Ham and eggers that do 100 here, 100 there. We go into this, play a little blackjack. Any advice that we can get over on the house? Anything? What are the best games to play? What would you tell us?
Yeah, no, actually, for me, I have so much experience gambling, and this is a great question to ask me because I'm not a guy who could sit here and tell you I've won, consistently over years because I didn't. But every mistake I made, I can tell you that I learned from, and now that I don't gamble, I could actually have a better lens on gambling, even better because I'm not like degenerately feeding my vein this passion. But main thing I would tell anyone walking into a casino or sports book or betting with a bookmaker or whatever is the discipline. You should write down 5 rules, and no matter what happens when you start losing, that's when those 5 rules have to be implied because that's when every gambler makes all their mistakes. It's not when they're winning. When they're winning, you see things clearly. You don't bet the game just because it's on TV, which is a cardinal sin that everybody does, including myself. Yep. I used to be like, I just need action. I'm bored. Like it's on TV and the Vikings are playing the Dolphins, and I just want to bet that game because it's on Channel 4, and here I am. Don't do that. Don't bet that game at all, or bet it for $10 instead of $100 just to feed that fix. But if you write down a set of disciplined rules that you follow, you'll have a much better chance of winning. And I will tell you this: bet less when you're losing, bet more when you're winning. That is a huge plus to abide by, because at the end of the day, when you go 4 out of 5, it's either going to be usually consistently both ways. You lose 4 out of 5 because you're cold and you're not seeing things correctly. You're handicapping, or however you're picking your games will probably continue. And everyone thinks, I lost 4 in a row. There's no way I'll lose the 5th one. That's absolutely the wrong answer. You'll probably lose the 5th one more than you would win it. So, but when you're winning, you got to put your, if you're a $100 wager, if you won 4 games in a row, don't be afraid to bet $200 on the 5th game until you lose one, or $300, because those moments are rare. And when you do get hot, you got to take advantage of it.
Matthew, you've got and you're owning up, and it's in the book, and it's in your talks now, and you're trying to teach people and lift up people. But you've got, pay the piper now. You got a date coming up,
That's right.
Hopefully just for a few months. Talk a little bit about that. I think it's coming up in October, and hopefully it will go all smooth, and what the future after that will be.
I've been building a brand for 2 years. The minute I got raided by the FBI, I decided to write a book and then, of course, have a foundation, a brand that I'm building. 17 days from now, I'll be reporting on October 10th at Lompoc Prison. And I'm probably the strongest I've ever been in my mind that I've ever been in my life. And I'm most positive, I've ever been as well, even though it's a tough time, tough moment for me. Being a father of 5. Yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, leaving my kids behind and, but at the end of the day, all I could do is be better, learn from it, teach my kids how to deal with adversity, use their mindset to overcome, moments of weakness, which is exactly
what kind of sentence, because a lot of people don't know exactly what went down and where, what it
it's a 1 year, like. 1 year sentence in federal prison and 2 years probation afterwards. I paid 1.6 and change, just under 1.7 million in restitution. And of course, my tax problems are higher than the sky, but I'll deal with that. I'll make more money than I ever have in my life. And I'm excited about my future. I do want to impact and help people learn from my mistakes, avoid, making the same mistakes, or at least if they're having an addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, doesn't matter. Go get help, find a way to address it before it becomes too late. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Good luck in the future. Let's stay in touch. And thank you for coming on. Thank you for writing Recalibrate. I think your prediction of mass hysteria here for gambling is spot on, and we better start attacking it now, especially with the young kids before maybe you can make an impact and we can make an impact on that. I think it's a great endeavor. And something, obviously, I know you're going to devote your life to and help a lot of people. So thank you for that in advance, and thank you for taking the time. And good luck to you.
And thank you, because we're you and I going to be in Japan next year sometime together.
That's
and
right.
I'm looking forward to that.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you guys for having me on your amazing show. And obviously, if we could reach out to somebody and help them in their life somehow, some way, then we did something great today. So thank you. And appreciate your guys' support. You guys are great people.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Best of the family.
Good stuff. All right, Big O, that was
wow, what a story, bro.
That was incredidible. That was really incredible. And what a great guy. What a great guy. I mean, people think of, you think of degenerate gamblers, and he's a family man. He's obviously such a kind person and loves people, and he's not he was some here narcissistic a-hole that you think of a lot of gamblers are that I know.
Well, yeah, true. Listen, the couple things, several takeaways here. But one of them, obviously, the most dangerous scenario here is that, alcohol, drugs, those type of addiction are usually, after time, self-evident. I mean, you just see the person deteriorate, right?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case with a gambler, a degenerate gambler, that he could hide it.
It's a great point.
And I think he brought that point home, and it's something of concern because, here's the catch, slippery slope. MLB, NFL, soccer forever, NHL, all of them are kind of infusing and kind of engaging with the public and their fans.
The odds are on the screen.
Bet.
Keep betting.
There's shows and how to bet, and they, certain basketball games come on down, and we're going to have, betting night, and the whole nine. So it's a slippery slope because you're kind of pushing. I guess it's the same thing that happened when alcohol, became legal, and then all the stadiums were pushing, hey, 2-for-1, beers and stuff like that, and you're creating a little bit of the problem that's already in there. So that needs to be addressed, and I know all the leagues are cognizant of that. And there's a lot of disclaimers and a lot of messages of being careful, but that's something to think about. Other than that, Matty is a super cool human being.
Yes,
he's the type of guy that was, man, I wish I had gone to Vegas with him one time and just, walked in his shoes.
It'd be fun. Just watching it bet 300 a hand. 300,000.
Exactly. So fascinating guy, and I wish him the best. And this is going to be an experience for him, a new experience to go into federal prison for whatever months, because hopefully, good behavior, he'll be out in 6 or 8 or 9 months. And the story, his full story and tombstone, if you will, has probably yet to be written.
Oh, no. Absolutely.
And I think sometimes the people that have experienced the greatness of something that was illegal are the ones that can teach how to get out of it
Absolutely.
and how to
Great
work
credibility.
It. Yeah.
Recalibrate is the book. Make sure you buy that on Amazon, wherever you get your books, and check it out. It's a fascinating read. I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, big thanks to Texas Roadhouse of Wesley Chapel for sponsoring this wonderful program. Also, Kingmakers of Tampa, the Murphy Auto Group, Genesis of Tampa. Thank you all for being sponsors of the Big O Show. We will be back in our next program to discuss all kinds of stuff, raise, new ownership, all that stuff,
and the crazy races of the wild card, and also the American League Central that it starts today with 3 huge games between Cleveland and the Tigers.
All right, this has been the Big O Show. We'll see you next time.